this was a great achievement for him. Now, that also sort of leads us to one of the criticisms of Conrad. And lots of people criticize Conrad because so much of his writing deals with the subject of colonialism, much as Heart of Darkness does. But he seems to think that the English don't make as many mistakes as other countries in Europe. And so that's a criticism you will encounter if you read about Conrad. But this outsider perspective, and this is something that those of you who might feel that you are an outsider, hopefully you don't. Hopefully you feel like everybody loves you and that they all want to be with you. But when I was growing up, I sort of felt like an outsider a lot of times in my life, and not because I did anything terrible or I was, living in the gutter or anything like that, just for various reasons. But most writers are outsiders because you can't really see what the group looks like unless you're outsider. If you're in it, you're not looking, you're participating. But when you step outside of the group, then you become able to observe. You become able to see things. You can do what William Faulkner called make man stand up on his hind legs and cast a shadow. And that's what Conrad is able to do. So look at the ways in which he is an outsider. He was an outsider growing up. He was an outsider in his career as a seaman. He's an outsider in the country he eventually becomes a citizen of. He's an outsider in the language he speaks. He's almost like a person who is forever homeless. That gives him a unique perspective. I can't tell you how many writers have, for one reason or another, and it might not be as dramatic as it is in the case of Conrad, but have for one reason or another a kind of outsider perspective. It's a very interesting kind of quality because it gives them the ability to do what Ibsen said the writer has to do. And what Ibsen says the writer has to do is to summon himself and be a judge. You can't do that when you're in the group. You do that when you step back from the group. Well, let's talk a little bit about Conrad's encounter with the Congo. In 1890, he went by steamer up the Congo River. Now, please remember that it was not until 1877 that a white man had made it all the way up the Congo, and that white man was Stanley, and we're going to talk about him in just a minute. So this is this would be a journey into a fairly unknown region. And Conrad saw this as a very daring, romantic sort of thing to do. But he also was there for very practical reasons. He was going to be made captain of the steamer after they got going on the Congo. Now, he was delivering railroad rails for the building of colonies and trading posts in the Congo. So he was a part of the operation that was supposedly, and I want to be sure to put this in quotation marks, civilizing, quotation, end quotation, the Congo. Well, what happened to him is he comes down, and this happened actually to him and the provisional captain of the ship. They both came down with malaria, and then they both got dysentery. They got very ill. And because of that, he was never able to become captain of the ship. In fact, for his entire life, he said he never recovered from the trip up the Congo River. He never recovered physically, and he never recovered mentally. He was always plagued by various ways in which the diseases he had gotten would come back to him. He was always plagued mentally by what he had seen. But he makes this important statement, very important statement. He says he had not had a thought in his head before that. Now, what did I tell you just before? I told you that he was already writing a novel when he went up the Congo River, right? But something that happened to him there changed everything. Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick, didn't start writing until after he had lived for a couple of years on a whaler. And he said that when he came back home from being on a whaler and he started writing his first novel, he was born. That's what he says. He was born, and he continued to be reborn every year thereafter. So what this means is this is a kind of pivotal experience, the kind of experience that changes a person, changes a person's point of view. What did he see on the Congo that might have done that? Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about colonization. Because this novel really puts us into the midst of this whole question of what we call the colonization of various continents, various parts of the world, and what we now call post-colonial, our post-colonial culture, where we're sort of beyond that and we're trying sort of to make up for that and deal with some of the outgrowths of colonization. What does colonization do to those areas of a continent like Africa that are colonized? And this is a question you can answer. It's not a rhetorical question. Pardon?
It makes it more modern.
Well, that's what we would like to believe. Yes.
It was supposed to make the people of Africa more civilized
Good.
and more of act like the British people because they wanted that, or they said that they did. But actually, in actuality, it just really messed up the whole continent.
Okay. Good.
Didn't it extinguish old customs and tribes?
Wonderful. I'm sorry. Question?
It killed the culture.
It killed the culture. Excellent. Excellent point. When colonization occurs, what you essentially do is you remove that culture from history. You say, your culture is not important. It's not significant. Therefore, we're going to make you into English citizens or British citizens. We're going to teach you a new language. We're going to teach you a new religion. We're going to teach you a new way of doing things. And if you have things that we want, we're going to take them for your own good, right? Now, what this creates, of course, or what this comes from, is a view of an area like Africa, and it's not just Africa, it's other parts of the world too, as somehow different from Europe, right? Not civilized, not ordered, disordered. All of those kinds of ideas come to mind. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film or watched the or read the book, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Anybody read that? Oh, we have a couple of people in here who have. Very good. Good reading for everybody. What does Malcolm X discover in prison? What is one of the pivotal points in his time in prison? Oh, he's got the book with him. Hold it up. Yeah. What he discovers in prison is when he looks the word black up in the dictionary, it is associated with negative things. When he looks the word